definitely as a kid always wanted to act, and then came along Joyride, where I guess there was the perfect, basically sexless neurodivergent role for someone as hot as me to audition for. And then I got that role, and yep, I'm gay and Asian, and that's how I ended up at a DEI summit.
See, that's what I love. You see, when you are from an underrepresented group, you get your identity shoved down your face, and you also get some gigs. On that theme of identity, what was it like for being on that set with an Asian director and cast? And was it different to being on a set where you're the only one?
I've been asked so many times what it's like being Asian. I've stopped saying it's awesome, and I've started saying it's mid. But I think what happens when you are on a project with people that are like you, and sometimes people will say this really poetic thing where they're like, I just don't have to explain myself. And I translate that to, you don't have to answer the stupidest questions you've ever heard in your life all the time. And that can just feel like every day sometimes when you're the only person of a certain identity.
Ismael, you had a similar experience. What was that like for you, suddenly not being the only one?
Well, I just suddenly didn't have to explain myself. And you don't understand how much of a strain that is, to consistently have to do these things that we call code switching, and also even like the way you walk and talk, and then suddenly you're in a cast that everybody's kind of like you, and you can just exist, on Lord of the Rings. The backlash was so tough. They're like, if he's not an orc, what is he doing there?
Or just because you are a man of color who's been cast as an elf, and people have got an idea in their heads.
It's like there's no.
Well, it's just obviously he's an orc.
And that's the whole freaking point. Surprise.
I think this point about being in a majority group, and I am in a majority group for lots of different things where I just take things for granted. A lot of majority groups just take for granted that they don't have to do all the identity shit just before you even turn up to do your work.
Absolutely, because I'm exhausted. Now I need to be, like what you said, that I told you, like a bulletproof elf, I have to be the elfiest elf that ever elfed. Like, by the time that I arrive on set, I'm no longer an actor or an artist or a person even. By the time you get to work, you are just trying to survive.
What you've actually described is this thing called stereotype threat. Like, there's a whole world of literature and academic research on how when you are representing an underrepresented identity group, you lose about at least 5% of your cognitive ability. Instead of it being in the task at hand, the artistry, the acting, whatever it might be, you're actually thinking about what if I let this group down? So that stereotype threat. Sabrina, I just wondered, does that resonate?
Yeah, it totally affects me a lot. Whenever I do showcases, I feel this intense pressure that if I don't absolutely, if I'm not like a clear standout, there is going to be some sort of weird narrative that I got this for diversity reasons.
I saw an interview you'd given where you said you could have some empathy for the racist, homophobic, and otherwise trolls.
Yeah, I deeply regretted saying that. I would never want anyone who is of a marginalized identity to think that they need to do more emotional work. I was just realizing, this is a really lonely, suffering person.
It's less about you, their comments, and more a reflection on them.
I identify as a Black Latino man, but I am light-skinned, and I am a cisgender man. So I have those set of privileges that in a certain room, I know that I can lend to fellow cast members. That lending of privilege, I think, allyship should be just check in with what you got and how you can use it.
That does deserve a round of applause, but you're not going to get it now. You get it in a second. Sabrina, last word to you.
I mean, I would just second that, have some humility and integrity, and don't be afraid to be the corny person that, asks if we can have pronouns on things. It really did mean a lot to me when, my cast member Sherry Cola did that for me because, I was new and I was really tired and scared and I'd never been on a set, and it just helps to have somebody, when you see like sort of systemic inequality, to not always put it on this other person to have to advocate for it. They're like the least well positioned to do it, and like just be corny for 5 minutes. It's like not that. Am I hurting the cause?